Zipping through the streets of Gotham, this is your look at the DC Collectibles Batman the Animated Series, Batman and Batcycle. Gotham is a dense, sprawling city with tall buildings, busy highways, and dark alleys. In his quest to protect the city, sometimes Batman needs a vehicle to go where the Batmobile cannot. Enter the Batcycle. Based on the design from the beloved Batman the Animated Series, this stylish figure set comes with a sleek, Art Deco-inspired light-up Batcycle and an exclusive Batman figure. Before we have a closer look at the Cape Crusader and his side Batcycle, the first thing we're going to do is figure out how tall Batman stands and how long the Batcycle is. So taking the tape measure to the very top of Batman's head, let's get it on right there. There we go. According to the tape measure, you're looking at Batman standing at 7 inches exactly. And switching that to centimeters, then you're looking at the figure standing 17.9 centimeters tall. We're going to switch that then back, go back to inches, and there we go. And I'm going to give you the length of the Batcycle. So for the front of the wheel to the back of the wheel, we'll stop the tape measure right there. There we go. And from here to here, the length of the Batcycle is 8.3 inches long. And again, going to centimeters, then you're looking at the Batcycle being 21.2, just a little over 21 centimeters in length. Going to just move the Batcycle out of the way for the time being, and we're going to first look at Batman. And before we have a closer look at the figure, we'll just do a couple of comparisons. Some earlier version released figures, this one here was the Hardak. Now, I think there's a lot of similar molds that were used from the Hardak to the Batman for the Batcycle release. The arms are appearing to be the same, as well as the legs. The torso, of course, does change because Hardak had to have the sculpting around the mid area of his body. Other than that, though, it doesn't look like much gets changed. Even like the cape, at least the top half of the cape, seems similar. So I think when we do some closer looks at the Batcycle Batman, probably going to do some more comparisons left to right with him and Hardak. Other comparisons we can certainly make as well. Let's bring in one of the earlier New Batman Adventures Batman. This came to us from DC Collectibles. And just recently, we also had a look at Batman from Justice League, who I just cannot get standing. Unfortunately, I have not yet fixed his problem with his boot. So unfortunately, I'm sort of just trying to use a display stand, but it's almost next to impossible to get him to stand. So I'll just sort of hold him next to the new the Batman that came with the Batcycle, just to kind of give you guys an idea. I mean, this is just a spindly mess. I'm going to definitely have to do some real serious surgical work on this to fix this Batman, but just to kind of give you an idea of how the Batman with Batcycle stacks up with some of the others that we've gotten before. Might as well really just bring everything back because we're going to be looking at them anyways. Before we have a closer look at the Batman, and before we, of course, have a closer look at the Batcycle, let's have a look at the instructions and all that other fun stuff that comes included with it. The Batcycle comes with an instruction guide, shows you how to install the 3 LR44 batteries before you think you're going to have to spend more on this. LR44 batteries are already included. You don't have to worry about that. But it does show you how to install them, or when you do need to replace to brand new ones, where they go, how they go, and how the vehicle turns on. The backside shows you also how to install the Batcycle to the street set. A little diorama base that the cycle can actually sit on top of. Really clever the way that they've done that. I'll show you guys that also in a second. And of course, I'm always a big fan of looking at the product catalogs. Well, again, this serves as a reminder, the dismal fate of DC Collectibles no longer. At least you can kind of see what they would be working on near the end of their Batman the Animated Series run. Now, we are still getting the yellow carded figures. I still want to be able to pick those ones up. And if I can find them, definitely a review of those will be coming soon. But these are basically all the other figures that they came out with around the time that they released the Batcycle, all of which I've had a look at on this channel, all of which are available in the playlist if you guys want to check them out, including the Expressions pack. To note, I think it's actually this Joker head right here that is being re-released in the new, I'm trying to think of the name of the line. It was like New Adventures of Batman. It's not even New Adventures of Batman. It's like the new Batman line or something along those lines. They're all yellow carded figures. Like I said, if I can find them, I'll pick them up and we'll have a look at them extensively. Put that to the side. We'll have a closer look at Batman's accessories. The only other accessory he comes with is actually just an alternate head sculpt. There's nothing else that, unfortunately, this figure comes included with. As you can see here, the two versions of the two different Batman head expressions. One's a little bit more of a determined Batman with his mouth open, a little bit of additional red done around his lips, while this is just a neutral Batman head expression. But other than that, I mean, like, the heads don't change too much. The eyes are exactly the same. It's really just the mouths that dictate the change in Batman's expression. That's it. If you want to change out the head sculpts, I kind of like this one myself as the one I'm going to go to when it comes to displaying this for myself. I just like the idea of having Batman with his mouth open. But if you do want to pop the head off, it's just simply popping that off the ball joint and then replacing it with the alternate head sculpt. Now, I did notice, though, it was a little more difficult to get this one on. I don't know if it's just because of the fact it's not the head that comes with it in the first place. Maybe because the socket on the bottom is just not as open as this one right here. But again, to give you an idea of how the two Batman head expressions look, I still like this one, but there's this one here also as well. We will bring in just now, immediately so, we'll bring in the hard axe. So again, you guys can see the difference between the two. A lot of similar molds get brought over here. The same similar arms, the torso. I do even think, even like the lower half, like his legs, for example, this figure also gets afforded the double hinge joints on the knees, which took so long, so very, very long for DC Collectibles to realize that maybe collectors wanted to have double hinge joints on their knees and not those single hinge joints that got all loosey-goosey, dinner bell down the road. The top half also, the cape seems to be the same, the rubberized area here, although this one does have the additional headpiece, of course, for Hardak peeling away the skin. This one doesn't have it, but it does look like they share very similar molds, the two shoulders from one another. The emblem also appears to be the same. Again, the only thing that this one doesn't have, the Hardak, is it doesn't have the mid-torso crunch in the abdomen. Of course, that was forfeited in favor of more sculpted-in details of the damage here on Hardak's body. The one thing I really like about this figure is that they've given it a cloth cape. It seems a starting point that Hardak got it, and Batman just has continued the trend here. Now, the only thing that's different about this one and the one that was on Hardak, this one is still a material, sort of a felt material that they use, but this one also does have a wire frame. Starts way at the top, runs its way all the way down, and stops not quite at the end point. Disappointing that they actually didn't run it to the very, very end, but anyways, there's a wire frame here, so obviously when you put Batman onto the Batcycle, yes, you can curl the cape, so it actually looks like it's blowing in the wind while Batman's riding on top of it. Love the way that they've done that. From the back, of course, it doesn't look like it's a continuous sculpt from the top of the shoulder, but really it's unavoidable unless they made the shoulder area also fabric, and then that always becomes one of those dilemmas where it then ultimately looks like a superpowers figure. We've sort of got that, you know, that little C bracket clipping around their neck. But the rest of the body on the Batman figure is actually pretty good. There's a little bit of smudging I've got here on the body, but the rest of the paint is generally quite clean. Every once in a while, I notice that there's these little smudges of glue, it seems, on these figures. I have it with a couple of the figures that I've picked up in the past. Batman seems to have it here as well. I guess it's just a residual of glue for when they put the shoulder piece in place. Maybe there was a little bit of glue that just smeared off to the side. That's a bit of a shame. The emblem isn't the cleanest, admittingly. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit of the black that's carried on to the yellow. This would be a figure-to-figure basis. Your figure may actually look a lot cleaner than mine, but unfortunately the one that I'm looking at has to be the one I'm reviewing. On the back, it's, again, generally quite clean. The yellow in the utility belt is done pretty good. I don't see too many paint defects, nor do I see it for the rest of his body either. Now, obviously, you guys are going to want to see the Batcycle, so we'll get through the articulation on Batman. His head does rotate all the way around. One thing I do like about it is that they've given it enough of a range that you can actually lift Batman's head up way high. That's perfect when it comes to him riding the Batcycle. In addition to that, well, of course, in addition to that, the head does rock back and forth, and yes, you can rotate it all the way around as well. The arms hinge out at a full 90-degree angle bend. They also, in addition to that, move forward and back. He has a bend at the elbow, which also allows the forearms to rotate, and the hands also to rotate all the way around with a hinge joint right there that allows the hands to pivot in and out. And unlike Hardak, I really hope I've said Hardak the whole time and not Hordak. I sort of feel like I'm backpedaling to something I'd said before. I'm pretty sure it was Hardak. You guys can call me on that if you want. But the torso does have, of course, an abdomen crunch. That's a nice touch, especially for a Batman that's going to be riding a cycle. He does have waist swivel. The legs split out. They go forward, they go back. And again, the much appreciated double hinges on the knees. Man, I wish more Batman figures from day one would have all started with double hinge joints on these knees. I mean, I can't tell you how many of these figures I've had where all the legs are extremely loose. These will at least guarantee prolong how long it's going to be before these legs get really loose. And not to mention, again, it just works better for articulating the figure and getting them in different poses when you actually have double hinges to actually work with. Last and certainly not least, he does have a hinge joint on the foot. It's got a little bit of an ankle pivot, not too much though. I mean, it doesn't play too much of a role, obviously, when he's going to be riding the Batcycle, which again, speaking of Batcycle, we should probably be having a look at that now. Now for what I consider the main attraction of this review is the Batcycle. The Batman's good, but I'm sure everybody looking to pick up this set are more anxious for the fact that they're finally getting a Batcycle. At least that was the case with me. Picking up the vehicle, yes, you have a very stylized design of the cycle that Batman uses in the animated series. If I flip it upside down, here's the battery compartment that houses the 3 LR44 batteries. And like I said, DC Collectibles already puts those in there, so at least you don't have to worry about them when you first get this for yourself. The cycle does have some articulation, and it's only really in the wheel here, the front wheel. But it does actually have a pivot point, and a rather interesting pivot point, so you can actually have it look like Batman's just sort of skidded out and stopped the cycle in its tracks. Speaking of tracks, some decently detailed tracks on the underside here. These don't feel necessarily like rubber, but they certainly feel like a plastic, a very softer plastic. The same can be said for the back of this cycle. It does also have spinning tires. I mean, both of them have spinning tires. Ideally, you could actually use this as a true cycle that you could spin around. Of course, it does have some controls up at the top there. We'll have a look at those right now. These will all light up, by the way, some better than others. To light them all up, by the way, it's just a matter of pressing, like I said, this button right here. I actually kind of think that it would have worked better to have a button somewhere on the side of the cycle, like maybe right here, somewhere where obviously you're going to have these circular places anyways where the cycle literally is just sandwiched together. I feel it would have worked better to have a light up option there as opposed to on the underside of the cycle. And you see what I mean when we talk about the display base. But anyways, what you're going to do is just going to press that button on the bottom, and that's going to light up. You're going to have a nice bright LED light lighting up the front headlight. You also have the same for the back tail light. And in addition to that, you also have the light ups on the top here with all the different speedometers and stuff like that. The only thing that disappoints me is right here. You've got this big shining light shining through. I feel like this would have been a prime opportunity to put like some sort of overlay over top of that where it would have looked like something. Because I mean, like looking at straight on, all it is this bright light. I'm trying my best not to blind you guys, but I wish they could have put something else there simply instead of just having a light there. But anyways, the whole idea with the cycle is obviously you can have it parked like this, or you can then bring in this piece right here, which is basically like a city street. What it is you have this back section here that looks like it's supposed to be the back tire skidding out. Now I find how it works is basically this metal post slides into the back section here first, and then this pops into the back here. And this actually gives you a little bit of posability. This shifts back and forth. I don't find it's the easiest, though, to get it onto the tire while it's still attached. So what I like to usually do is take this off first. I want to show you guys what it looks like first and foremost. Nice frosted, translucent plastic. But here's the little notches that I was talking about on either side right here. This is supposed to fit around to the tire, and it's very difficult to do it while it's still on the base. So I actually like to put it down first, and it sort of just wedges itself right in this little grooved area between the tire and what's holding the tire in place. Once that's there, then all I do is I tilt this up and I slide this through, and then I pop it back down. And then I sort of still get everything the way I want it. I just find it's a lot easier than doing it the opposite way, where you're trying to wedge the tire on while it's still in place. And that's a good look for the cycle. The other alternative too is you can take this back cycle off, you can take this off, and you can take the entire thing and flip it around. And now you've got almost the same sort of cityscape, but now a manhole cover. At least that's what I'm assuming this to be. It still works the exact same way. This still slides in, pops down. And instead of looking at it from the bottom side now you can be looking at it from the top. And I like the fact that it does have a two-way to look at it, a double image, a double print. While this is basically, I guess, it's just a more of a city roadway, this looks like this is actually just like the side of the road, or like maybe there's a manhole cover right there. I mean, it's making the most of the fact that obviously they're going to be molding this. Why not actually do it where you could be able to use it from both sides? In a way, actually, it would have been fun, too, if they had made it so that there was a little plate cover that could have fit over top of this if you wanted just to have a cityscape to display your figures on top of. But going back to what I was saying about the light-up option, you can sort of now see how difficult it is, even when I've got it attached, how hard it is to actually get your finger under there to turn it on. So I would say that, again, it would have made more sense, we just spin the cycle around here, if the light up option was on one of these, like even right there or even at the top there. It would have worked the same way, and it would have been a lot easier to get to with the cycle displayed like this than trying to get your finger underneath there. Now, of course, yes, you can always just lift this up and still press the button and then push this back down. But again, I just feel like the button on the side of the cycle would have made a whole lot more sense. And it'd be a lot easier than have to lift the cycle up every single time you wanted to turn it on. I'm sure you guys will want to see how Batman looks on the Batcycle, so what we'll do is just a little bit of pre-prepping. I'm going to bring his arms up, just going to move his legs forward and bend them ever so slightly. Still, again, I love the fact that they're using those double hinge joints. What we're going to do is, Batman has permanently gripping hands. You can sort of see it on either side. Looks like he's grabbing some criminal's jacket. But what you're basically going to do is you're just going to take the hand and fit it down onto the handlebars, like so. This is actually the most difficult aspect of getting Batman onto the Batcycle, is just snapping his hands onto it. Once you get one on, then it usually is pretty easy to get the other one on. I find actually this hand right here seems the more difficult of the two to get it onto the handlebars. But once it's in place, there we go. Once Batman's in place like this, then you can just bring him down and just bring the legs to the side, and then just sort of get him as low down on the cycle as you can, and then just sort of adjust his legs accordingly. As I said, the head does tilt up, so that's a very nice touch to be able to see Batman actually being able to look where he's going instead of looking down and driving into a lamppost somewhere. And then from there, you're just going to adjust the cape, just like this. Do it on both sides. And again, I love the fact that they put in a wireframe cape. This does add a whole lot of extra realism to, again, a very cartoon-specific Batman. Again, with the light turned on, there we go. You can see how it illuminates still below there, as well as the back of the Batcycle, as well as the front of the Batcycle. And overall, again, that just looks such a great-looking display piece, especially if you have it skidding out like that. Again, the Batcycle can fit perfectly fine and stabilize itself pretty fine on its own. Or if you want to make use of the display stand, you can certainly do that as well. But either way, though, it's such a great-looking vehicle set. And the fact that we do get ourselves a Batman with it, it would make some logical sense. Couldn't imagine that DC Collectibles would simply just release the Batcycle on its own, because not many of the Batman figures would fit comfortably on the cycle. It definitely works better in Batman's favor to have double hinge joints on the knees, and unfortunately not all of the Batman animated series that DC Collectibles had put out actually have that. Now, whatever my feelings may be when it comes to the actual figures themselves, I've sort of had a love and hate relationship with the Batman animated series line. On the one part, I love this line because we've gotten every character we could imagine, except for, of course, nameless police officer sets, mob boss sets, and just random thug sets. But we've gotten every other character we could think of released in this format. On the negative end and the hate end of this relationship, the problems with introducing these figures with single hinge joints from day one caused real problems when it came to these figures to stand. They, of course, have rectified it with later released figures, like the Batman here, for example, that comes with the Batcycle, all using double hinge joint knees. And that's the way it should have been right from day one. Sort of a sending off here is the Batman the Animated Series Cycle, which, of course, they have done vehicles. Not all the vehicles. We never got villain vehicles. We never got police cars. But we got the Bat vehicles. The Batcycle that we looked at in this review, the Batmobile, and the Batwing. The latter, the Batwing, I just never picked up just because I didn't have the space afforded to put it on display. I still have the Batmobile somewhere. And, of course, I have the Batcycle. The Batcycle is the most manageable when it comes to space because you can put this on a shelf. And I love the fact that they actually gave us a display base, a way to display this cycle as opposed to just having it on its own. That little skid-out treatment that they have at the back of the back tire is a really nice touch. It allows you to showcase this as not just a figure in a vehicle, but an actual art piece, something that you can look at. It does give you the option, of course, of turning it on and off. Not the easiest, yes, to get to the button, unless, of course, you lift the cycle off the display base and turn it on and then put it back down. But again, on top of that, we have light-up options, which, again, is that nice bonus to the vehicle. Gives you a little bit more realism to the cartoon. And you have a superposable Batman that sits on top of it with the much-appreciated, long-overdue double hinges in the knees. Batman didn't start it. We did get figures before this one that had the double hinge joints on the knees. But boy, oh boy, it works so much better on this line. I just wish they had done it right from day one. And I wouldn't have had the problems with this line that I have had. It's sort of, again, a mixed bag. The later released DC Collectibles Justice League line, you know my feelings on that. You've seen the videos of those. You know how bad the quality is on those. So again, this sort of redeems itself. This came out before those figures, yes, but it redeems it, at least my opinions of this line, that I can sort of send myself off until I get, of course, newer released figures, the ones I can find in stores, but at least this redeems what I felt when it came to the Justice League release line, which was just abysmal. If you managed to pick up this one for yourself, let me know down below in the comments section what you think of the Batman and Batcycle, or just based on this review. Also, if you're new to the channel and liking the content you're seeing, consider the idea of hitting that subscribe button down below, turning, of course, that bell notification on. Most definitely keeping your peepers peeled, because there's going to be lots more videos coming your way. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.